The gateway to the West, Cardinal Nation. St. Louis, Missouri is home to some of the most brilliant doctors in the world. These doctors are pushing science to its limits, healing patients in new, innovative ways. And doing it at the same time, they're teaching the next generation of doctors how to save lives. Meet Dr. Eisenbeis and Dr. Brunworth, SLU Care ENT specialists, Dr. Place and Dr. Puryear, SLU Care orthopedic surgeons, Dr. Huber, a SLU Care anesthesiologist, and Dr. Lin, a SLU Care plastics and reconstructive surgeon, who all travel the world to bring medical care to people in serious need. This is the science of healing.
In the United States, if we have a problem, we might have to drive an hour or two to see a specialist, but not having somebody in the entire country that can help you is it boggles my mind.
For us to go down and experience these types of moments where somebody might get a care that they wouldn't have otherwise, and then they're so grateful, that's really what makes the mission trip worthwhile.
Would love to see the culture of giving and sharing shared in our healthcare profession. We do it locally, but we're immediately reimbursed. This is something you get that is above and beyond, and when you go to that extent above and beyond, your reward is above and beyond.
I think it's the chance to have a more global footprint to what we already can provide here.
And I don't think that would be possible without such a great group here at SLU and the team of this brigade that we've put together. You could never do something like this on your own, and all the people that have supported us in our mission trip. So.
It's almost like any other kind of volunteering. You may have a volunteer reading books to kids. You already read books to your own kids, but when you do that, it gives you a human connection. It opens your heart in a way you didn't know.
Getting this to be a self-sustaining hospital, teaching them how to do it themselves, and this goal of eventually bringing our subspecialty to their region, that they're then able to continue that going. And it's a really great feeling that gives us to be able to teach not only the local doctors, but perhaps the future generations.
In 2001 was my first mission trip to Honduras, and there was a man here in St. Louis who had been going for a couple of years there, and he said we need ear, nose, and throat doctors there. We put together a group, and 11 of us went to a town called Juticalpa in Alancho, which is the department or the state in Honduras. And we went down for a week and operated at this hospital. And it was a dirty, dusty town and gunshots at night. It was absolutely incredible. I mean, they had not had an ear, nose, and throat doctor there really ever. And so anything that we did, clean wax out of ears, it was like life-changing for some of these people. We went on the first trip in 2001, and I took residents with me, and then we've been going ever since.
I've always had that desire to help other people. The first time I went down to Honduras was as a translator, as a medical student. It was something that I had always dreamed of doing. I had been studying Spanish my whole life and studying medicine now for the first time.
Trips to Honduras have really evolved, going from 2001 to now. We would go to the town called Juticalpa and had a small hospital there, and we would operate there and do about 50, 60 cases a week, and we'd see the patients in the clinic. And now we've been going to a town called Catacamas because Catacamas was the largest metropolitan area in Central America that still didn't have a hospital. If you fell off the back of a truck there and hit your head, you were not going to get health care for a day or two, and so you were not going to make it, and all sorts of things would happen. And so there was a number of people who had been going to Honduras. They said, we need to build a hospital. So 8, 9 years ago, we all met at Our Lady of Pillar Church on Lindbergh Boulevard and sat down and wrote out plans with an architect that was from Honduras, and then set out a plan to raise money, and we raised almost $4 million and built a hospital in Catacamas. And that's where we've been going ever since then. And when you arrive on Monday morning, and sometimes now it's even on Sunday afternoon, there'll be a line somewhere between 20 people if it's Sunday night, or 180 people on Monday morning that have been standing there since 7 o'clock and waiting, and some of them won't get seen to 4 o'clock that afternoon. And it breaks your heart a little bit because they're sitting there and they look at you with their eyes and they said, I can have surgery, and you suggest, and they go, can I have it now? I haven't eaten all day. We're like, well, no, we'll get to you. It'll be Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday sometime during this week.
The patients that we see have a wide variety of problems. Some of them are coming specifically because they've never had any access to hearing aids, and so they might have a hearing issue, and we'll test them and deliver them hearing aids all within the same visit. We had in November an 8-year-old who, upon getting fitted with the hearing aid, this was the neatest thing, he started on the way out clicking his feet on the ground because he had never heard that click of his feet on the way out, so he kept pitter-pattering through the hallway back and forth, listening to the sound of just his feet. Something so simple, but that we wouldn't think of until you see something like that.
You know, we do surgeries on sinuses, we do vocal cord surgery, ear surgery, thyroid cancer surgery. It's really the whole gamut of things that you can do in ear, nose, and throat.
I've removed several tumors from patients' noses that have been growing in there for sometimes several years, to where they cannot breathe, they're having nosebleeds, and they don't know what this tumor is inside of their nose. And so to have that out, it means the world to them. They'll tell us, I've never breathed before in the last 10 years, and this is the first time I'm breathing through my nose. It's an amazing feeling. So
the patients, some of them live there in the town, and some of them, I had one who literally had taken canoe down a river, rode a horse across an area, and then walked a couple of miles to get on a bus for 4 hours to get to see us. So they spent the whole day traveling to come and see us. Many of them, don't have much at all, but the stories are incredible. I took tonsils out of this girl, and she was about 10 years old. And we went back the next year. We're sitting there, and I knew she had come a long way. And she was sitting there, and I was, very surprised to see her. And she came up, she handed me a letter. She had written this whole letter, and the letter was about how this totally changed her life. She wasn't sick anymore. She didn't miss school anymore. It just, it made her happy every day. She wrote that in her letter. And she said it made her want to someday, be like the doctors who come here and take care of people. So, it does send chills up your spine.
we had a patient that came in with just nasal obstruction and just hadn't been able to breathe through his nose for the majority of his life. He was about a 17-year-old boy. And we were looking in there in the clinic, and we thought, I think he just has a really deviated septum. Well, it turns out we took him to the operating room because it was completely obstructed, and it was a large tumor of the cartilage of the center of the nose, the septum. And so when we brought it out, it was about the size of a golf ball, and we were able to put little splints in that we talked with one of the local doctors about removing a week later. And when we communicated back with them via email, they said that he had never breathed through his nose and that this was the most amazing experience. And we were able to get the pathology was a benign tumor. So he got this tumor that had been growing in his nose out of there. If we weren't able to go there and help, what happens is these patients don't get the ENT care, and so they'll oftentimes just live with a condition for many, many years.
We first went, we had a couple of tongue blades in our pocket and trying to practice state-of-the-art ear, nose, and throat care. But what's happened since then is we've, from hospitals that have closed or practices that are closed or upgraded new equipment and equipment companies, we have fantastic surgical equipment down there.
The reason we go to Honduras and help other people is part of the SLU Care mission. And so we try and uphold that mission here in St. Louis, helping everybody that we can here in St. Louis. And this is just an extension of that.
The first time I went on a mission trip was with one of my mentors, and it turned out to be the same mission trip I've been on now for the past 9 years now. But we go to the same children's hospital in Lima, Peru every year. And so by going to the same hospital each time, there's a real chance to get to know the community, both the physicians and surgeons there, so they can learn what we know and how the complicated surgeries we do. But more incredibly is the families, because we keep seeing the same kids over and over and watch them grow every year. And when we get there, they all come to us like it's a huge family. And then they bring more children and bring their little sisters who have the same diseases or what have you, or little sisters and brothers. And so it really, I think that's especially meaningful for being a pediatric plastic surgeon. A pediatric plastic surgeon reshapes a child's face, a child's body, so they can be more normal. And so the most difficult thing is, as that kid grows, things are going to change on you. And so compared to so many other fields, this is the field you have to follow your results to know what the long-term results are. And if you didn't go back every year to see the kids, how they grow into the surgery, then you would be doing a disservice to them and to yourself. Part of the reason why I keep going back is I want to see the kids again. They're just like my family here at Cardinal Glennon Children's Hospital at St. Louis University, where I see the same families over and over again. Every year on their annual cleft team visits and their annual craniofacial visits. I mean, they're excited to see me. I'm excited to see, wow, another year has passed. And so these kids all tend to have craniofacial disorders, and certain genetic diseases are higher incidence in Peru. So for example, many of our children have Cruzon syndrome, and children with Cruzon syndrome have their skulls fused at birth. So when they're before a year of age, we have to cut and move their skull so that their brain has enough room, and cut and move their orbits so that their eyes don't grow out of their homes, so that there's a roof over their eyes. And as they get older, the upper jaw needs to be moved forward too, so they can breathe better and not have sleep apnea anymore. And so that's some of the most common things we do, is move the face, the orbits, and the skull, and the jaws for these kids. We also take care of any pediatric plastic surgery problem there. So we have had kids with Mobius syndrome. They don't have the nerves that move their face. So we'll do tissue transplant of muscles from their legs that you don't need and reattach the arteries and nerves. So now they can move and smile for the kid. They sometimes call that smile surgery. We have moved jaws for kids who can't breathe well, to look more normal, chew more normal, breathe better, cleft lips, cleft palates. But mostly the craniofacial surgery is what makes our mission group very different than other missions. There are many missions that do cleft lip and cleft palate surgery. The group I go with is one of the few that do craniofacial surgery. Craniofacial surgery is higher risk and higher blood loss. I believe there was a time in the beginning of this group when they went to one of their smaller hospitals that the villagers would have to bring a friend to donate blood for us to do the surgery. But now it's a relatively modern hospital. They have a blood bank and everything, so that is no longer part of the equation, although for most of the surgeries we do, you do get blood transfused. It's a really wonderful opportunity because it gives us a chance to touch the lives of somebody much farther and much different than ourselves, but at the same time are human just like us. Past 2 years I've taken a chief resident of mine who is interested in going into craniomaxillofacial surgery, into cleft craniofacial surgery. And so it's an opportunity for them too to see how much good they can do. So for example, another patient I distinctly remember, her name was Marybeth. She had a tumor, a neurofibroma tumor in her skull, and it was so big it was pushing down her entire eye. And so together with the plastic surgery team, we created a surgery to move only 3/4 of her orbit upwards, so it would solve the problem of repairing the communication between the skull and the eye and raise her eye at the same time. And that made a very big difference for this very shy 13-year-old girl to, instead of one eye this low compared to this eye, to feel more normal again. Oh, I mean, this family was so grateful. You know, we get a lot of tears for what we do, and the tears are sometimes early, and sometimes a year later there's still tears, but they're tears of happiness too. And it's also tears of sadness when their kids are going to undergo a very big surgery that has risks. But that is something that is a form of communication that we're familiar with, tears. The other unique thing about the group I'm with, it's called Comedy Plast, and it wasn't started by me, it was started by a different plastic surgeon, but we literally bring professional clowns with us. So there's a clown group in Seattle called Caring Clowns. They do mission work all across the world, but this is the group we join forces, these two mission groups together. And they literally, when the first day we get there is our intake day, and so we convert the gymnasium to a big clinic. And we see 50 to 60 kids and try to figure out which ones need surgery and are healthy enough to tolerate surgery in the next 5 days. And that's a long day, just seeing 60 kids. And so the clowns entertain them during that time. And at first I thought, what a strange idea to bring clowns on the trip. But these clowns really change. I mean, it just makes the family, it's such an international language of laughter, and the kids love it, families love it, and it really takes their mind off something that's very serious, getting really big craniofacial surgeries. It really is, of the huge range of human emotions, no matter what culture, what language, what person you are, what part of society you are, laughter is the universal connector, I think. I do care very much about people's happiness, and I do like seeing people smile and laugh, and the very surgical thing I do is restoring smiles. Cleft lip, cleft nose, cleft palate is actually the most common birth difference in America, 1 in 600 babies. In America, I think a lot of Americans don't realize how common it is here because we take it for granted that kids are walking around with cleft lips, cleft palates all the time, but they're very well fixed in America. And so I think that's actually another really important part about volunteering and doing mission work is the opportunity to appreciate what you have again. Sometimes you spend your day and you get maybe even tired of your day. And then when you go somewhere else, you realize, oh my goodness, how fortunate are we? How fortunate are the children in America, in the United States, for having all these services? So I think that's another big part about volunteering and mission work and going overseas that shouldn't be underestimated, is the power of gratitude and appreciation that you get back from your volunteering, to realize that what we have, other people don't have. So it's a very important part of what we do there to provide, even fixing the very common cleft lip, cleft nose, and cleft palate.
So I started going on mission trips probably about 15, 18 years ago. My son was going to be on spring break. My wife said I could go out of town for a week if I took my son along. Since then, every one of my 5 children has been on a mission trip. It's changed their life. And my wife begged for her opportunity to go, and so she's been on mission trips with me too. They started in Haiti. We've been to Dominican Republic. Recently, I've gotten involved with someone who's been trying to initiate and take care of children in Central America with scoliosis. And so I've been going to Honduras now for probably about 3.5, 4 years.
Maybe 2007, 2008, we went to China. I was with Healing the Children, and it was a pretty awesome experience.
Honduras was my first mission trip. I've been 2 times now. I waited a couple years once I was done with residency to actually do a medical mission. I just wanted to be more confident in my skills.
I saw that there was opportunities for us to get involved as a department. The department recognized that need, and actually my department supports an annual mission trip to Malawi, where we actually take an orthopedic resident and a faculty member and go to Malawi. The opportunity in Honduras came up, and right now I have 2 partners who will be joining me in Honduras, and we will be rotating there with a group from Rochester, New York. We support a local surgeon, so it's not like we go and leave and then there's no support for the children. When we go, we provide the same level of medical care that we would if we were doing that same surgery here in the United States. It's actually improved our care here in the United States, so we have realized that we can possibly move children a little bit faster, do some other things to help them. It's helped us in terms of cost effectiveness.
These patients are incredible. They're so grateful for what you're doing for them. They just want to hug you. Their parents want to hug you every time you walk into the room. It doesn't matter if you've already been there 3 times that day. You know, they want to hug you and just show how grateful they are that you're there.
We take care of scoliosis, kyphosis, and then those both come with both sort of developmental problems and congenital problems. So we see a lot of congenital issues.
We go to San Pedro Sula, which I think at one time was the most dangerous city in the world.
You feel somewhat stretched and challenged, causes you to actually use all of the medical skills that you ever did.
If we did not go down and do these surgeries, a lot of these kids would get progressively worse. The kids with scoliosis, they can have respiratory issues as their spine curves. It inhibits their ability to take deeper breaths. They can get pneumonia. They can die. Some of it is more of a cosmetic thing, but a lot of these kids would progressively get worse and potentially perish.
Patients in Honduras at this mission, we meet on a Sunday, so they've all been looked at and screened by a local orthopedic spine surgeon. We'll participate in their care there. Talk with them, find out what we can do and what we can't do to help them. Sometimes it's sad because we can't help them, not there. And then try to help them find care here in the United States. So we do that through a local organization, World Pediatric Project, who's a great supporter for us. We then see the children, see if we have something we can do to help them, and then we say, how would you like surgery this week? Help as many children as we can on that week.
Some of my favorites were actually from our first trip that came back to see us on our second trip. They were great because they showed up on our clinic day. They knew we would be there. Some of them traveled to come in and see us, so it was really sweet that they showed up because they wanted to see us. We actually follow a lot of them on Facebook as well. We're friends with them on Facebook. And one of my favorite kids was, he was actually almost 20 years old when we took care of him. His name was Jacobo, and he didn't have scoliosis, he had kyphosis, so more of a hunchback. He was very quiet, and when we put him on, we put him on the scale and then we took his height after his surgery, and he had grown, I think, just over 2 inches just from straightening his back out. And so, but you should have seen the grin that just went across his face when we told him how tall he was. It was really sweet.
You realize very quickly how lucky we are in this country and how you can really provide so much care to people who don't have access to anything, and that's a real difference.
Some of our other kids, they're so tough. They never complain about pain or anything. So you ask them to get up and walk around, and they just go.
They feel that they can, get married, or they feel that they can, have a job, and that they're going to be successful in that. And just doing this has made their life different. I mean, it makes their families are happy, and everybody's so appreciative of what we do and of what changes we've made to them.
I am clearly renewed by doing mission work, and it's what I need to keep doing at the present time to kind of keep me in the best shape I can for my patients in St. Louis.
So one of my favorite patients was a boy that we did just this past time. His name was Eduardo, and he was 14 or 15, and he actually spoke English. That's a problem we have with some of these kids, is there's a little bit of a language barrier. But he spoke very good English, and it was really funny because he was one of the sassiest for being a young adolescent boy. He had some sass, and I would come in the morning and kind of see how he was doing, and he'd be kind of tucked under the covers, and he would give some of the most dramatic side eye. He would just kind of like glare at me out of the side of his eye, like, what do you want me to do now? So he was the most fun, because once we got him up and moving after that first day, he was a lot of fun. He would joke around with us a lot. He was suffering from scoliosis, and his actually was one of the most dramatic, I think, before and after shots that we have as far as his x-ray goes. We were able to straighten him out quite a bit. So on our last trip, we had a little girl named Kenya, and she had cerebral palsy, and she was developmentally delayed. She was the sweetest thing. Every time you walked in her room, she had the biggest grin on her face. For Kenya, she actually didn't walk. Her parents would push her on in a wheelchair or carry her. But for her, it was a matter of her pelvis was so tilted that she could hardly even sit up anymore. She was lying down almost the majority of the time. And so for her, it was just a matter of being able to set her up so that they could help her eat and just do basic functions. But she definitely knew that we were there to help her, and she was appreciative, and you could see that on her face.
Our last mission trip, in 4 days, we did 14 scoliosis surgeries.
Dr. Puryear has a huge heart, which not everybody always appreciates, but those who come to know him really recognize he has a huge heart. We saw that many people who needed something done. We looked at our supplies and said, can we help the people? And we looked at the team and said, are we ready to go? And
it was just because they kept, both him and Dr. Place, they wanted to help more, and we all wanted to help more.
So I gave everybody a veto. Everybody on the team had a veto. If the nurses said, we can't take care of that many post-op kids to do that, then we wouldn't have done it. If Marybeth Hubert said, I can't provide the anesthesia for that and make that, then she would have said, can't do it. But all of us looked at our own personal resources and the resources we brought and said, I think we can do it. So the St. Louis community does a lot in terms of charity. For clear, the things that the St. Louis community can continue to do is support those organizations that show that they have a track record of helping. A group like World Pediatrics.
It was actually started by a woman right here in St. Louis at her kitchen table because she couldn't believe that, her motto is, where you live shouldn't dictate if you live. And so she was inspired, and she started raising money, and she started actually bringing children, sponsoring trips to the States to get medical care.
SLU Care, I think, has and senses a mission to the community. I think St. Louis University has done that by its staying downtown and its relationship with the community. I think SLU brings people here who have a sense of that mission, the Jesuit mission of a man for others, a man and a woman for others, that I think it really appreciates. Those of us who come here understand that it's purely not just about dollars and cents.
doesn't surprise me that there's a lot of mission trips. I think by the very nature of us all working in academic medicine, I think we want to give, we want to teach, we want to pass on, what we know and help others learn. And so I think it doesn't really surprise me that there's a lot of trips that come out of SLU Care.
We have a huge ENT group, goes a lot. I think that people kind of do it for their own reasons, and they just kind of do it and they come back, and most of the times we don't even know. The reason why I'll find out, especially in our operating room, is because they'll take part of the team and they'll say, well, why isn't Dr. Wild here? Oh, they're in Honduras. Oh.
Doing the same thing you do in another country gives you a whole new sense of perspective, even though you're doing the same thing, and it's very valuable.
It really is what we want to do all day, every day, is really keep the patient in mind and focus on the patient and who that person is, and can I walk in their shoes and feel how they feel.
And so the team, which I'm not sure it really comes out, the team helps bear the cost for those children's surgery, which is why we're supported by organizations like World Pediatrics. But besides that, each of the physician providers come and take money out of their pocket to help pay for the kids' surgeries. The team, I try to limit it so that the nurses don't have to take money out of their pocket to do that, but they give up their time, talent, and vacation time. Huge gift for them to do that. But all the physicians who come on this actually pay something financially to go.
We have really dedicated, focused academic surgeon scientists who are in the front of their field. They're trying their best to solve problems. I could talk about the research we do in 3D printing and inventing new techniques that people haven't seen before or used before to help problems that people didn't think had answers before, and yet combine that academic powerhouse with the community feel. I just met a patient earlier today who was, looking at different hospitals in the region, and they commented how it just feels like a home here at Cardinal Glenn and Children's Hospital. And I think the whole university has that feel. So we're global, and yet we feel like home too. And I think that's what volunteering is all about. It's bringing your home to the rest of the world.
I am rejuvenated, and I think it kind of gives you another lease on why you're in medicine and the things that you can do and how you can be appreciated.
It's really about what can you give back. And so the first trip I went and saw the changes you make, and really the changes in the people are incredible, but the changes in the people who go in your group is incredible. Meaning the medical students and the residents and then the nurses and the anesthesia people that all go on the trip, they all come back home changed. And they're like, wow, this is what I want to do, or this is what we should do, or this is what we can do every day, is we need to be giving back to other people.
It just aligns with everything that we stand for.
If you would like to make a donation and help these amazing mission trips continue, go to giving.slu.edu/medical mission and make a donation today.